something wasn't right. Everyone's like, oh yeah, you like, you're just being a first-time mum. I went back to the GP, and the GP referred me to the paediatrician, and that's when our life changed.
When you first get diagnosed, they tell you to mourn your child, because what they say is the child you think you're going to have, you're not. You have to go through that process.
From there to here, what needed to happen?
Acceptance needed to happen. For me, I used to worry about the future all the time. When I die, who's going to look after her? How's she going to fend for herself? What is going to happen? Actually, I can't control any of that.
You mentioned speech therapists, and obviously, Azra, you're a speech therapist.
Children don't always communicate in conventional ways. They always communicate somehow that might be a little unusual or unfamiliar for the rest of us.
As a community, we haven't embraced the differences.
She's talking now, like nothing's wrong with her. She's gonna, catch up one day. And it's like, no, mate, she's not gonna catch up one day.
Actually, you don't realise, you say it once when you see a family at mosque, that parent then thinks about it for the rest of their life. Yeah?
Powerful.
And often that will be, sadly, the last time they come. And every single person has a right to attend the masjid.
But she's beat the odds. She can read, she can walk now, and she can talk. That we thought that would never happen.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone, and welcome to the KHOJA Connection podcast, Growing Through Conversations. And I am your host, Durain Hirji. Today, we're going to have a conversation, a very important conversation, and I have called 3 amazing guests who will really go through and talk to us through the journey of SEND, which actually means Special Educational Needs and Disabilities. It's a very important topic that as a KHOJA community, we need to address, we need to bring more awareness to. And so I'm very grateful to my guests today to have taken the time to come here and talk to us. We have here today Zora and Abbas Megji, and we have Azra Hasnali. Assalamu alaikum, everyone, and thank you so much for joining me on this podcast today. So can I ask each of you to introduce yourself, who you are, what you do? Shall I start with you, Azra, and then we move this way?
Yeah, sure. So, Assalamu alaikum, and thanks for the opportunity to come today. So I'm a mother of 2 daughters. I'm also by profession a speech and language therapist and have been for 20 years. And then in my kind of voluntary role in service to the community, I about 20 years ago, set up a learning support department at Madrasa, which is now led by somebody else. But I'm still involved in the background, supporting with a couple of specific projects that we run every year. And then I've also set up the first Shia Islamic structured mother and toddler group in the community, and out of that created a CD of Islamic rhymes and songs that kind of support parents in nurturing that love of Allah and Ahlul Bayt and the understanding of Islamic concepts in children, but in a fun way. Yeah.
Wow, that's really cool. I want to talk to you more about that because I think that's important, how you use different techniques to reach children and different types of children as well. Thank you for that introduction. As Zora and Abbas, you are beautiful parents of a beautiful daughter, I'm guessing. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Do you want to tell us more about that?
Yeah.
So assalamu alaikum, everyone. My name is Zora, and I am a mother to our beautiful daughter, Ara Megji. She is 7 years old and was diagnosed with a very rare genetic disorder called Rubinstein-Taybi syndrome. And with that comes with its challenges and happiness as well. But we, both of us, Abbas and I, are directors of the Rubinstein-Taybi support group, the UK support group. And we host a lot of events. Abbas is the treasurer, which we'll talk a bit more about. And one of my key responsibilities in that charity is to connect families together across UK. And we host loads of events, send out newsletters, and just, give off a community vibe to the RTS network, really. So,
wow.
Yeah.
That's a lot. And you must be really dedicated to the cause for you to have, actually, come into the directorship and the treasurership. So what do you do then?
So like Zora said, so part of the charity as a director and a treasurer, manage the finances. On top of that, we had an idea of creating a sensory friendly clothing range. So we've started that. So we have our own website where we sell that and special kind of inclusive t-shirts, and where we also write a blog. So just maintaining that that website, the social media and all that kind of stuff as well keeps us busy, along with like the day jobs. So I'm an accountant, Zora's in compliance, so that, and then raising the R as well. So it's busy.
Yeah. Busy life.
Yeah.
Excellent. Let's start from the beginning and let's go back to the time when Ara, is that the name?
Yeah.
What a beautiful name.
Thank you.
Ara was born. Did you know or did you not know? Or did you find out when she was born?
Yeah, so it's a real crazy story. So Ara was born, everything was fine. 5-month scan. As they're doing the scan, the sonographer called over a doctor. He wanted us to go to Queen Charlotte the next day. She said, there's just a little bit of an anomaly, let's just check it up, nothing to worry about. They did a fetal echo scan, so they kind of did a scan of the heart. And from that, they said that she has what they call a right aortic arch. So basically her aorta is on the right-hand side, not the left. And it can cause a bit of issue with breathing, but 50% of children that have this normally have DiGeorge syndrome, which is like Down syndrome, but instead of a deletion, it's an addition, or the other way around. I can't remember. So they said you can do an amniocentesis to find out. We were supposed to be traveling for Zora's brother's wedding a week later. So we were like, I'm in on what to do. After we slept on it, and then we decided to do the amnio. When we did the amnio, 2 weeks later, we got results. They said it was all clear. So then after that, you're like, oh, it's fine. Everything's fine. Pregnancy went on. Zora gave birth. But then Zora was about 6 months in, was like, there's something not right. Like, as in the other children that, the other children in the NCT group, they were either rolling or doing certain things or reaching certain milestones.
And just, reaching milestones. And she just wasn't meeting any milestones. And I was like, at home, something's not right with her. Everyone's like, no, and I lived with my in-laws at that point, and we all lived together as a family, and everyone's like, oh yeah, you like, you're just being a first-time mum. Took her to the GP. She was always spiking high temperatures, and every time we'd end up in A&E, and something wasn't right. And obviously I cried to the doctors, and I was like, something isn't right. I need to see a pediatrician. And she was projectile vomiting, not just once a day, like 4-5 times a day. Went to see a private pediatrician, was told that it's acid reflux. I'm still not convinced. Says something's not right with her. Went back to the GP, and the GP referred me to the pediatrician. And that's when our life changed, because that pediatrician literally stripped Ara naked. It was like, pinpointing things, like she's not lifting her head as much. Her head's quite small. Let's go and get her a genetic testing done. And we were like, nah, we don't need genetic testing. We've been told that everything's all right, nothing's wrong, everything's fine. And the pediatrician was like, you should go for genetic testing, because you have, even those children who don't gain weight, he was obviously trying to make me feel better. They just don't gain weight, they go for genetic testing as well. So I was like, oh, you know what, let's just go for genetic testing. And then that's when
the diagnosis came out. And
that's
when the journey started, I suppose.
The journey started.
So we were told that nothing's wrong with our kid to begin with, and then 8 months down the line, or close to a year, we were told there is something wrong with your child. We don't know yet. We need to go for more testing, but there is definitely something wrong with your child, because she just doesn't look like you. They were like pinpointing faults out with her, like she's got too much hair, she's got a birthmark. What else did they say? Their eyes are too small. Wide.
Hands are broad. Feet are broad.
She's not mumbling. She's not making any vocalizations. She couldn't even roll or lift her head up or anything. She wasn't eating properly. Like, she couldn't even sit on the high chair. Do you remember when we were feeding her? Because like her head was just bopping up and down. Like, she was like slanted, and it was just, yeah.
And as a mum, what was going through your mind when you realized that something is actually not right? And in fact, there might be more. And obviously you went through that journey with a pediatrician. What was your feeling at the time?
So until January 24th, 2018 was when we actually got the diagnosis. And the first thing I asked the geneticist was, is my child going to get married, and is she going to be able to work and live by herself? And then the geneticist first things, like, she just responded like, I don't think you need to worry about all that right now. Here is a booklet of what RTS is, Rubinstein-Taybi syndrome. Go away and join the support group, because at that point the support group was fairly new, I think. And yeah, and we were just given that. And I don't know, I can't. It was such a blur of.
You know what? Yeah. So when you first get diagnosed, they tell you to mourn your child.
Yeah.
Like, because what they say is the child you think you're going to have, you're not. And at the time I was like, oh, that doesn't sound right. But looking back, you have to go through that process. You have to let go of wanting to play football in the park, or maybe doing certain things that you would just envisage your child doing. Thinking about a wedding, thinking about anything that you thought you and your child would do, you kind of have to let go, because you will have happy moments. They just won't be what you envisage them to be, right? And so that's the kind of mourning process you kind of have to go through, which takes time, which takes years probably. I wouldn't even tell anyone, barring my parents, Zora's parents. I would not speak about it for a while, and it just takes time to just understand that things are going to be different, or not how you plan them to be. And that was the process.
And what impact did that have on the two of you as a family, as a couple? Obviously, it's hard enough to have to deal with the realization, the dreams you may have had, the thoughts you may have had, and then now you have to now face the community. You have to forget the community, like you said, the family first, the people, the friends. How did you manage to, because now you've obviously joined, you're on a different, path in your journey, alhamdulillah. But from there to here, what needed to happen?
Acceptance needed to happen. So it was a lot of, so for me, I used to worry about the future all the time, originally. What's going to happen in the future? When I die, who's going to look after her? How's she going to fend for herself? What is going to happen? Do I need to leave? I need to plan now for she has enough money for when all of that stuff. And it's not until, actually, I can't control any of that. What I can control is tomorrow. What I can control is doing the exercises to help her to walk as much as she can. Doing the speech and language exercises to help her, give her the tools to be able to speak for right now. That's what's in front of us right now. And so it's not until you kind of like forget about the future, or put the future to the back of your mind, and then start thinking about, well, what do I need to do with her today to make tomorrow better? And yeah, they'll get setbacks, but then you just have to get yourself up and try again, and just keep going. And it's until you just let go of the future and worry about today is when you can actually start to make inroads into what's going on, right?
That's a beautiful life lesson that a lot of people learn so late in life that, I mean, in this case, you've really had to kind of have those lessons and apply them. You mentioned speech therapists, and obviously, Azra, you're a speech therapist, so you would see a lot of parents going through these challenges. What do you see in the parents that there's resilience, or what kind of qualities and skills do you see in the parents that have gone through the journey and come out the other side with a totally different perspective?
Do you know, I think it's important to remember that the journey probably isn't linear. It it changes over time. And whereas I know we talk about the where you were before and where you are now, and the development of resilience over time and being in a different place, but life changes come up that kind of can throw you, new difficulties, new challenges, new surprises, new wins as well, which are to be celebrated. So actually, it's a constantly demanding and evolving process for parents and for the village around them who are supporting them. And I think we need to be really mindful of that. I think from what I see, the kinds of skills that parents have are incredible amounts of self-compassion, but to get to the point where you can be compassionate to yourself, it takes a lot. It takes a lot of being vulnerable, but giving yourself permission. A lot of the parents that I kind of interact with feel almost like a huge amount of responsibility to step up more than they already are as parents, to make things right for your child, to secure their future, like Abbas was saying. That's such a huge responsibility. So I think self-compassion, finding the strength to pull on skills you never thought you had, but you do. Everyone has it in them to do better, to be better, or to be different, and to rise to the challenges that life gives you. So I see a lot of that in parents, discovering new skills that they never thought that they had. And advocacy, that's something that I see and really admire in parents, is being a voice for their child. Often, as community members or even as professionals, we make that mistake of talking about a child without actually consulting them. We talk about them, but to the person next to them. And I think that's a bit of a mistake, actually, because there is always a way to include that child's views and needs and wants in the conversation that you're having, number one. But there is a place for parents to be their voice if they can't, or to interpret for them, or to let professionals know this is what they mean, this is what they're trying to say. Because children don't always communicate in conventional ways. They always communicate, somehow, always, but that might be a little unusual or unfamiliar for the rest of us. So that's where parents play a really important part in advocating for their child.
The important part, as you said, is the self-compassion, which we often forget. And what you said as well, Abbas, just now, is that you plan for the future of your children, even the children who haven't got disabilities. Even for them, we try to plan. But actually, this teaches us that whatever situation you're in, you can never plan for your children. You can never worry about, whether they're going to get married, who they're going to get married to, or how their life is going to be, or how independent or dependent they're going to be, or, these are worries of all the parents. But actually, even as a parent, me of 3 children, it's not a worry that's my worry. It should be Allah who's looking after us all, and whichever situation your child is in, he's going to look after that child, because he's the one who's put that child into our guidance. So it's a life lesson for everybody. So I just want to come back to you because the reason why we're doing this specific podcast, I think, is really important, because as a community, we haven't embraced the differences. And Azra, now, you're into the team, and you're representing this community from the SEND perspective and inclusion perspective. And I think it's amazing that you have actually come forward to talk to us, because there's so many parents out there who need to hear this, and parents who have children with disabilities and who don't have as well, because we need to be educated. There's a lot here to be said. So as a couple, you must have gone through challenges. It's not easy when you're in a relationship without having that extra factor. It's hard enough. So I can't even imagine how it must be in terms of raising a child and still having to see the silver lining, the happiness, the joyful moments. And you mentioned earlier, it's happiness as well, isn't it? It brought a lot of happiness as well. Ara must have.
Yeah, for sure, 100%.
So, how did you navigate through that?
Do you want to go?
I think I truthfully think we've grown stronger as a couple. I mean, don't get me wrong, we argue loads, and we bicker and the normal not, but it has brought us closer, and it's been hard to we've stuck together, I think, and we've had each other's backs in the hard moments when we're trying to relay information to GPs or to the consultants, and they're not quite understanding. No one knows what RTS is. You go to a consultant, they have no clue. They're literally Googling it in front of you. And, whatever Google says, they're like, oh, she's got, you need to go for a kidney scan, etc. But we will be there for each other to be like, no, this is what needs to happen. This is the next step. I want this scan. Or if it's like fighting, when families say, oh, she's talking now, like nothing's wrong with her. She's going to, catch up one day. And it's like, no, mate, she's not going to catch up one day. That's not what it is. And then at that point, we will both jump in, or one of us will, if you can see that other person getting quite irate or really upset, the other one will just jump in and be like, no, this is what's happening. This is where we're at. And this is how we're coping with it. But in other aspects, it's brought us closer because she brings a lot of happiness to us. She does. And it's taken us a while to see that happiness, because I always thought that, she's never going to be able to read, and she's never going to be able to talk, never going to be able to walk. But she's beat the odds. She can read, she can walk now, and she can talk, which we thought that would never happen. Yeah, so I'm digressing. But yes, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I think you're right. I think it's brought us completely stronger. We go... Even just looking after Ara spending a long time with Ara is draining. Like, she wants to read the same book. She'll watch the same thing on repeat. So, like, she wants to do the same puzzle again and again, just the same one, and she'll break it up and do it again, and constant. And everyone goes through that phase, but this is like 7 years that we do the same puzzle, we do the same TV program. So we have to just help each other out in terms of rotate it or just give each other a break. So that working together, keeping us stronger. And also, as what we're talking about on the way here actually, is you need to just spend time for yourselves, and not be guilty about it. It's okay, to get a babysitter, someone that you trust, and go out yourselves and just take your mind off it, and just have a date night or whatever that may be. Or even go to Canada with your friends to play football, whatever that is. You sometimes do need to just have your own time. So it's kind of like a mix of everything, but it's definitely brought us stronger. We've definitely got each other's backs, and we're definitely, like Azra said, fighting for inclusion constantly with wanting Ara to be involved. There's so much people talk about inclusion right now in various groups, but this group we can talk about and we can include, and we should do.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds to me that you guys are now experts at this. I mean, you kind of have to become, but it's nice that that you're in such sync with each other, because then that's how you can look after each other, yourselves and are as well. What would you say to parents who have this guilt in them? Because it's I was speaking to a parent whose child had a disability with eyes, where she discovered that, I think, when she was born, the baby was born, and the doctor said something about, oh, it's because of something you ate or something or the other. Obviously, now she's living with that guilt, that something I must have done or I must have not done that's created this situation. Is that something you felt? And if so, how did you overcome it? What advice would you give to parents who are in such mode of guilt?
Yeah. So I think I find that hard to believe for a start, that something she ate caused the thing. As parents, and that's your child, you naturally feel guilty. You want to give them the best. You want them to be the best, and to be told that, oh, this child is got a learning difficulty or whatever it may be, it does make you feel guilty. Like, it may have been something I've done, it may have been something we didn't take, the vitamins that you need to take as pregnancy or whatever it is. But that guilt is not going to improve the child. And what's important for us is, what can we do to make Ara better, or do to make Ara's life better or comfortable now? That guilt is not going to help you do that. You kind of have to understand that it's probably not even true, and you've got to do what you can today to improve the child going forward and their future. And that's the thing. That's what took me a long time to worry about what the community thinks, worry about what this person thinks, what is she going to do with this and that. But actually, it doesn't matter. It's kind of like going back to what I said before. We just got to make tomorrow better for her. And then whatever happens,
Yes,
right?
absolutely.
Leave it up to Allah.
Leave it up to Allah. Azra, what would you say to a parent who's feeling guilt?
Do you know, this is one of the reasons why I got into translating all my professional work into service to the community. I'm sitting in university as a fresh-faced 18-year-old learning all this amazing stuff about what the world can offer children and parents with disabilities. But I know, because I've grown up in my local community, that we don't offer anything anywhere near that in all of the amazing services that we offer. There's a massive, great, big, gaping hole. But as a community, we are, well, I'd like to think that we are one of the first ports of call for a family of a child with a disability, because they have that faith-based understanding, right? And that can offer a lot of strength, compassion and understanding. But unfortunately, we don't realize the impact of the words that we use and the behavior and even our facial expressions, even our thinking and mindset towards parents and children and adults, young adults with disabilities. We've really got to start checking ourselves, I think. I think we also need to forgive, maybe, that if anything we do, or perhaps our elders have said, is based on what they've heard generationally, there's lots of myths that they've heard growing up, back home, wherever, and perhaps they don't know better. So we have to understand that as well. Where are they coming from? And forgive ourselves for our history. But it's really important that we start making changes for a better tomorrow for Ara and all the other children and their parents and carers out there. Something's got to change now. It's no longer good enough. We are educated enough. We've got information at our fingertips. There's no excuse for some of the hurtful comments or misinformation that we're giving to parents and carers. And actually, you don't realize, you say it once when you see a family at mosque, that parent then thinks about it for the rest of their life.
Wow.
Yeah?
That's powerful.
That's
And
true.
often, that will be, sadly, the last time they come to that Islamic centre.
Yeah.
Who made that rule that actually if you have a neurotypical child, come freely anytime you want, regardless, and that actually if my child makes noise or appears different or something, that it must therefore be the parent's fault and I'm going to tell them about it and make them feel awkward next time they come. That's not... Every one of us are blessed actually to belong to an amazing community like ours, and every single person has a right to attend the masjid. We have a social responsibility to check what we say to parents. So I guess going back to your question, what I would say to parents is forgive us for the things that we have said. Perhaps it's out of ignorance or misinformation or myths or whatever. We will try and do better. Look beyond that. There is plenty of good that's happening in the community as well to make you feel just as welcome and included as everyone else. But I also appeal to all community members, really, that if there's something that doesn't feel right, that you've heard that doesn't sound right, don't repeat it. And ask, go out there and research, speak to that parent actually and say to them, look, you know what, I've heard about this being referred to with this word. Is it right? Because I don't know if it is right. It doesn't feel right to me. They will tell you if it's right or wrong. And not just that, but what to say instead. Some people might say, well, but I don't know what else to say, which is fine. Sometimes situations are so new and unfamiliar to you that by mistake you'll say something because you don't know what else to say. Then ask, what should I say instead? How would you like me to treat you and include you and support you? So then you can be fully included and welcome as well.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question, actually, which is, as a community, we need to be educated about this. I personally don't know much about this. And if it wasn't for you, Azra, who set up the SEND team in KHOJA Stanmore, with your amazing team, I wouldn't have known about it as much, and I would have been unaware, because I personally don't know how to approach, what to say, what is the other person feeling, thinking, and it's important not to hurt a person by mistake, inadvertently as well, which is why the need of being educated. So tell me, what are the things that you hear that people are saying that you think, why? How are they even saying these things? And what should people say instead? What is acceptable to say? What is not? What are the words that we shouldn't be saying and the words that is okay to say? Coming from a completely outside, perspective as parents.
Yeah, okay. So for me, the one thing I used to get all the time was, Allah gave you this test because you can handle it. And it used to make me so mad because in my head, I was also going through a whole rationalizing my faith and understanding how this is happening in my head as well at the time. So in my head, I'm going, okay, so Allah's given me this child that has got additional needs, but he can also take my life tomorrow. Then what the test for me is a child. So what's the test for her? Is that fair in relation to my nephew who's the same age and is neurotypical? So that was a constant thing that I used to struggle. And when people used to say it to me, I couldn't relate to it, and it used to make me mad. To be fair, a lot of people in my circle were compassionate and would ask a lot of questions. It's more the looks you get. So Ara stims, she makes a humming noise when she's excited or when she's playing. And around the community, you could see, no one would say anything, but that look of she's different. You know what I mean? And that's hard I get it. It's hard, because it's someone, she's making a noise, you don't know. But it's that look where they're looking, which also used to get me. And you know what? We're quite open. So we don't even mind if someone comes and asks. Ara's our child. We'll talk to you about her for days. You can talk about your children for hours. So it's just those little things that I think that used to get to me more than, no one really said anything that hurtful or anything really using derogatory words or anything like that. It was just those looks and that whole thing about, he's given you this test, but it's those kind of things. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, the sort of more cultural way of thinking. Yeah, absolutely. What about you? Sorry.
No, that was me.
So mine is when other children in the community laugh at Ara's behaviour. Quite rightly, children are children. They don't know either. But or if it's in a gathering of in a madrasa class or a sports class held by the community, etc. And if the coach or the teacher can see that child is being laughed at, not in such a horrible way, but little smiggers here and there, call it out at that point and say everyone is different for a particular reason. If we're in an Islamic setting, God has made this child the way they have for a particular reason, they're special, etc. But call it out. Don't just let the other children continue their sniggering. Is where we attended a sports event, and it was very obvious that was happening. And we left because there was no point at that time to bring it up because it was just not the right time to do it. But I just think that teachers and coaches or anyone, and I understand it's new territory for them, they may not know this, they offered us a spot for a trial because we all also said that my child's got SEND, she's in nappies still, she's 7 years old, she's still in nappies, but I just think that if it comes a situation, just call that child out in a nice way and explain to them that people are different for a particular reason. Don't have to go into so much detail, but just highlight it at that point. So then, but address it to the whole class, not just one child. Take them to the side and have them a telling off, not like that, but address it to the whole class. So then the whole class can make that other person feel more included in the activity that they're doing.
Yeah. I mean, it must be hard as well for a parent to see that happen to your child, and you're witnessing that, and no one is defending or saying anything. As it is, it's hard. So, when you feel like everybody's making fun, it's not easy for the parent to have to go through that. What is the child must be going through? What have you looked at what goes through the mind of a child? Normal parenting is hard enough in terms of, what to say, what not to say. We read books, but this extra factor of additional needs, what is she going through? What's going through her mind? Can you share with us how?
So I used to get so mad at when I used to see people either laughing or making a face. I used to get so mad. And actually, it's something Zora said to me when we were coming home and we were talking about something. And she said, but look at her. She's just happy. She doesn't even know.
Yeah.
And so, you know what? There's no point you getting mad, because actually she's very content, like, in whatever she's doing. She's oblivious to a certain degree of what people are doing. She doesn't have to be in a group. She'll happily play if she wants to play before she has a meltdown, that is, on her own. So it's not until that point where I've kind of just been like, it's like, pick your battles, and maybe not everything you kind of attack for, but she is actually content. I don't think actually it bothers her, to be honest with you.
Really.
There's a lot she doesn't know that you know.
Yeah. But my child doesn't like, she doesn't like other kids.
Yeah, generally.
She generally doesn't like
she'd
other
be
kids.
happy to play on her own. So I don't think it actually bothers her that much. Like, we take her to this martial arts class in Watford, and it's a mainstream class, and and the teacher knows, and she does about 10 minutes, and she'll be lying on the floor for 10 minutes and things, but she just doesn't really care, essentially, what the others are doing or what they're saying to her. And so maybe that is a blessing. I don't know.
Yeah, and I think sometimes going back to what that conversation I was having with the mother, a lot of the times the parent's projection on the child and looking at the way you look at your child makes a huge difference. So if you think your child has the disability, but in the sort of wrong way, then everyone else will look at that child with those eyes, isn't it?
Yeah.
Whereas if you change your perspective on how you're looking at your child, suddenly you're embracing it rather than resisting it. And would you feel that that's an experience?
So now we'll go out. The humming noise for me used to bother me, but now it doesn't. If we're doing something in the park, if she needs a hand, we'll go and help her. We'll try and give her as much encouragement and get her to do whatever she can. She does a couple of mainstream classes in the week. So we do try and give her the tools to just do as much as she can.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Azra, I wanted you to come in to kind of educate all of us on, again, that was from a parent's perspective, but from your perspective, what not to send, what to say to the child, to the parents, to the situation.
So circling back to what I said at the beginning about how we have to remember that child or young person with a disability is still a person, I think as much as possible we need to remember to speak to the child or to the young person. Sometimes if we don't, it might be out of fear, or we don't really know how to talk to the person directly. And if you don't know, ask. Just ask the parent or carer, whoever's with them, hey, I really want to speak to them. Is that okay? What is the best way for me to do that? So that's really important. I think also we run the risk of creating this kind of elephant in the room when, for example, if your child asks you, why does she look like that? Or why is she humming like that in the majlis or whatever? And we say, shh, no, you don't ask those questions. We don't talk about that. Shush. Or I'll tell you later. Actually, what you're doing is creating a problem where probably there isn't one. What's far better is you just talk about it. And if you don't know what to say, I'm going to sound like a broken record, but honestly ask. Just say, hey, how about, actually, you know what? I would say, do you know what? You're right. That's interesting. I've not really seen a little girl hum like that in mosque. How about we go ask her mummy why she does that? And while we're there, why don't we ask her what she likes? What's her favourite colour? What sport does she like? So then you're teaching that child that yes, perhaps they're behaving differently, but there is a child behind that presenting behavior. And it's really important to try and build relationships, whether Ara herself likes children, doesn't like children, whatever. We are still going to try to make that effort to get to know people, build relationships, and break that stigma of silence, that if there is difference, you don't mention it, you don't talk about it, you might cause offence.
Yes.
The best thing always to do is just to ask if you don't know. Make sure the conversations are always open.
Yeah, and it's the asking of it. I think that in our community we need to move from asking from judgment to curiosity.
Yeah,
and I think
exactly.
that energy changes
Yeah, I
completely.
agree.
And you can feel probably even for other things as well, when somebody's asking you a question, you can feel the tone and the energy. That is this coming from a place of judgment, or is it coming from a place of pure curiosity? And actually, like you said, you could talk about
For days. Yeah.
all the time if it's asked in the right manner, with the right way, with the right energy. And just like you said, just ask. That's actually so just ask.
Honestly, we need to think about, when you said what kind of language should we use, well, think about the language you would use to your own child, or to your child's best friend, or the language you would like people to use to you. It's that simple rule, isn't it, in Islam, where you're told to treat others the way you would like to be treated. It sometimes doesn't need anything too extravagantly different. We make it more complicated and we think, gosh, they have a disability or they're different, we've got to do something special. Sometimes yes, but sometimes no. A simple conversation is fine and good enough. Do you know, if you look up the World Health Organization definition of a disability, it talks about how often disability is actually made up of barriers that society constructs. And I think that, yes, you can look at that as like not having lift access and ramps and equal access to jobs and all of that. But I think it's also about society's attitude and the language that they use to refer to people. When you medicalize someone, when you talk about conditions or problems or overcoming something, it makes it feel like there is a problem or something that needs to be cured almost.
Fixed.
Yes, and fixed. But
As if it's broken when
as
it's
if-
actually not.
right, as
Yeah.
if there's some kind of disease or like actually, yes, that child may be different and may have difficulties or a disorder or a diagnosis, but there's nothing fixed about them that anyone needs to swoop in like a hero and fix at all, right?
Yes.
What we're trying to do is to support everyone to understand where that child is at, what strengths and blessings do they bring with us, and if there are challenges, and let's not deny there will be, what can we do to support that child and the people around them that love them most to help them work through it. We're not overcoming things, we're working through things. That kind of moves us away from this whole medicalized idea of supporting children and young people with disabilities and additional needs, more towards everybody taking responsibility. It's not the responsibility of one person to cure things. It's everyone's responsibility to make sure that child thrives and that their parents and carers are well looked after in order to do that.
I love that, going through rather than overcoming. I think that's a huge difference of language. When you're going through it, you're actually feeling, seeing, you're actually going through the experience of it. I actually really like that. And I think everyone's going through something at every stage of their life.
I think, sorry to interrupt,
Yes.
what that also supports parents to kind of manage is a bit like Zora was saying, when people make those comments like, oh, but they're talking, so everything's fine now, right? When you start saying overcome, it assumes there is a point at which everything will be fine.
Yeah.
I don't know a single human on earth for which things suddenly become fine. Whatever cards you're dealt with, you're having them for a very long time. And when people around you use that language that will make you feel or set up the expectation that as parents maybe you have a responsibility to bring this back to ground zero so everything's all right, it's too weighty. It's completely unrealistic. Life's constantly changing and unpredictable. So we do need to move through. When you move through rather than over, you're actually picking up skills along the way to keep moving in that forward direction no matter what comes your way.
Yeah. So you're changing the word problem with challenges. And I think that's a huge difference, because a challenge teaches you, like you said, when you're going through the challenge, you're learning skills, you're becoming a different person. You're literally, transforming in that moment. Whereas when you look at it as a problem, then you kind of feel stuck and you feel like, how do I, why me? And all of these negative talks comes into your mind. So, yeah, I mean, wow, that's a really profound thing that you've just said. And I mean, I was watching this movie, that is Amin Bar. It's
Everyone likes that movie.
I love that movie, and I actually showed it to my children as well. And after the movie, we sat down and we did a little key takeaway from the movie. What did you take away? And the fact that everybody's special, everyone is a bit special in their own way. It doesn't mean, it just because someone looks different, speaks different, behaves different, doesn't mean that there's not, in fact, there's something more special about that, because there's so much more learnings for a family in that moment. But you mentioned mainstream earlier, that she does some of the mainstream activities. So does that mean she normally doesn't go to a mainstream school? How does it work?
Yeah.
I mean, I was watching a documentary on Sky News where there was a child who was 10 years old, had a special need, but couldn't send her son to school because there was just no acceptance from the other side, and therefore she was homeschooling. But it was very hard because the mum thought she was failing her child with something so basic as education. So is that something you've also experienced? Or?
No, so with us, so once we got a diagnosis, nursery were really great. They helped us get what they call a EHCP, so Education and Healthcare Plan. We had a psychologist come when she was at nursery, get her on a plan to help her with her speech, and then through that, it's basically a contract with the government or the council, and essentially gives you certain provisions for speech and language, for physio, for occupational therapy. So she's had that, and then at the time of school, because she has an EHCP in place, we went and then spoke to special needs schools. We were living in Harrow at the time, about if she would be eligible for certain schools. In the end, we decided to move into Hertfordshire just because the special needs school there was, we felt was a better suit for Ara. And to be fair, she loves her special needs school. She loves it when the bus comes, picks her up. She looks forward to school every day.
Oh yeah, she loves it.
So we're blessed in that way. So she really likes school. She does like martial arts in a mainstream class, but she does a lot of she does drama. Like she goes to an inclusive drama club. She does like one-to-one cycling. She does gymnastics as well. So that she has like a mix of different varying classes. Obviously Madrasa, which she absolutely loves as well. The SEND class there is amazing, and both of us volunteer there as well. So
Yeah.
She loves Madrasa and she loves her friends there as well.
Yeah. And credit to you, Ezra, for
Yes.
setting that up. I think you're changing a lot of lives, and we don't realize the impact that does have on the families.
Yeah, so so Riaz will kill me if I don't mention this, but it's massive because I think he said to me the other day there was like 60% of parents who have a special needs child end up in divorce.
Like 60%.
Yeah, it's a massive number.
Is that in our community?
No, just generally.
Oh, generally. Okay.
And he was talking to potential volunteers in this and saying like, if you can spare like a couple of hours to help volunteer with the special needs class, there's a realistic chance it could save a marriage, right? And we're at a point now where like there's a few of us that take sports for an hour to help to share the load with that SEND team. But we think in the new cohort there's going to be another 10, 12 children that may have to be denied a place just because of the lack of volunteers. So it's just a real appeal to, if you can spare even an hour on a Sunday morning, it would really help like some of these people out.
You mentioned, so two questions came to mind. Firstly, is the statistics in our own community. Maybe you or Azra, you can answer that. And the second question is, you mentioned that otherwise there's divorce. So what did you mean by that?
So it's just the burden of having a special. It's like, so they say that around about 60% of parents that have a special needs child, because of the burden of the child, the marriages end up in divorce, just because of the additional needs. We've met parents where the dad just couldn't deal with the fact that he couldn't play football with his son, and then he's ended up walking out, etc. So a lot of because of the additional pressure does drive a lot of divorce, and there's no respite. So having a place like Madrasa where people can take for a couple of hours can give some of those families that bit of respite that you never know they may need, that could save a marriage.
Yes.
And that's why we're like,
I would love to have my Sunday mornings. I would like love it. Just drop her off somewhere for 3 hours and not worry about it, and not, can get on with my own thing, go for breakfast. But unfortunately, we can't do that either, because we know that Madrasa lacks so much volunteers from the SEND side, and we need, that's why we do need more volunteers to help. So then I'm not saying that we could.
The parents of those children can then go and have a break.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
literally,
an eye-opener.
Because in all honesty, there isn't a break. There's no summer holiday camps. There's no, and then, we can fight for ages with the council. I need a space at Men Camp. I need a space at Send Venture, but it all comes down to availability, funding. And if you don't have any hours left, you don't have any funding left, that's it. There's no availability. You can't put your child in half term in these camps. And Madrasa I'm not saying that it's just a childcare service, it's not, but it's a way to support those families that generally are desperate for it. So yes, it'll be good to get volunteers, wouldn't it?
Look, this is how we first started all that 20 years ago, and all the challenges that came with suggesting that we should accommodate for children with special needs in Madrasa, where they were really used to accommodating for children who just sit quietly and neatly into boxes, predictable boxes. Okay, so suggesting to the community, hey, let's accommodate for difference. It wasn't easy, and unequivocally, the success rode on the generosity of time from parents of children with disabilities themselves, because they would drop their children off and then say, now tell me who else I can support in that time. We have no idea how much strength that parent had to pull on to then give of all of themselves, and probably the last bits that they had, the last of their reserves, their energy and mental strength, to then support a child and someone else's child with a disability. But actually, it's not just their responsibility. Oh, if I'm dropping my child off with a disability, therefore I must also offer my time. It's everyone's responsibility, and everyone has time and skills and expertise and energy. We just need to figure out how we're channeling all of that, because our community is our primary responsibility. Yes, we're sending our children to Madrasa to learn, but we're also sending them there to remind them who is their community, right? The socialization aspect of Madrasa is so important, isn't it?
Yeah,
where they belong.
Where do they belong? And don't think that a child with a disability, for them, it doesn't matter. It absolutely does. You just said how much she loves going to school.
Yeah, she loves seeing her friends.
She loves going to Madrasa. So actually, Ara and every other SEND child who attends fully understands what they're being offered. But let's not undervalue kind of the level behind it, which is the parents supporting I talk about this a lot, but the parents supporting their child also get value from seeing their children supported at Madrasa and integrated members of the community. So we really need volunteers to come forward. And if you feel like, but I'm not good enough or skilled enough, or I'm not really sure what to do, give it a go. You never know. I think we talked about this earlier, that actually the greatest of achievements come from stepping out of your comfort zone, challenging yourself to do something new. You might realize, actually, I really enjoy this, or I've learned something new today. I wasn't confident before, but I am now because I've had the support. And I know for a fact the Learning Support Department offers training and support and things like that. So it's really not that difficult, actually. You just need that motivation and a little bit of time. As you said, even just an hour on a Sunday goes a really long way. And I will also just say, it's not just about fulfilling the needs of families of children with disabilities. You will leave with your own cup so full.
Yeah.
Having just spent that time having fun with kids and knowing what, the level of service that you've done with the community, it's incredibly fulfilling.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, I'm hoping that a lot of people who are listening to this, I know I'm very much inspired that actually this perspective that you've just put out there, that, give you a break, because, it must be so hard, like you said, full time, give you a break so that you can go and have that bonding with each other, have that sort of time with each other. We can contribute to society in that way as well. So I really am hoping people will come forward to do that. So you don't get a break at all? Or do you sometimes take time off now that you've on this side of the journey, slowly moving forward? Are you able to take breaks and make time now a bit?
Yeah, so we're blessed. I'll go sleep early. She goes sleep at 7:30. She gets up at 5, but it gives us an evening. So whether we are watching Netflix or we go out, or we go out with friends, we can do that. So we do take the time.
We do that. We do. But in terms of, I think, in terms of holidays, summer school holidays, no, I struggle with that a lot. And it's just, Abbas is the main breadwinner, so ultimately he has to go to work and to the office, etc. And my hours are very mum hours, 8:30 to 3:30, and obviously I take calls after, as we all do. But I struggle with it a lot. Yeah. It's just, that's why I have fought to get Ara into after school activities so I can get my break. Where else are you going to escape to? I don't have, my in-laws were a great support network for me. They really were. We lived together for 10 years, but unfortunately both passed away within since 2020 and 2022. So that's been like snatched away, where I was very comfortable having their support. That's gone. My parents live quite far. My brother lives, he lives close, but he has his own life too, and he does support us. My sister-in-law lives far, but she does support when we, whenever we need it as in form of desperation. Yes, we can revert to them, and we've got close friends. But it's very hard in holidays where you need a summer camp or a holiday camp that you can drop your child to and leave and walk away. There's been camps that I have had to stay there, work in the coffee shop next door, because I was still in nappies and they won't accept her. So it's like, and again, Madrasa is not a childcare service. It's not. But that place, we can actually leave our children. I volunteer there, so I don't do this, but there are other parents that do. They can leave their children. They can get on with whatever they need to do and have their break. That could be just shopping in Sainsbury's or whatever. But we don't get that, do we, really? And then every ounce of, any holiday that comes by, we're fighting the council. I need more SBLO hours, which is short break, local offer hours, or I need a direct payments to get a one-to-one support that I can have on a weekly basis. I get denied so much. So it's like, it would be good if in our community we could offer a SEND holiday camp. Get hire professionals in, or there are loads of professionals in our community that we pay a full day rate, and there are lots of families that can afford it and will want to pay that. And then for those, we can, a scheme can be set up. But one of the key things is we do need a service where we can drop our kids so that they can be taken care of during, doing inclusive activities, etc. We can go away, we can do our work, we can do whatever we need to, pick them up. But we lack that. And it would be really good to see that. I think we really need that service.
Yeah. I mean, we've started, with SEND now, so slowly, I'm sure.
Well, I was going to say it's one of our objectives actually in our 5-year vision. So 2 things. Number 1, I'm working with existing small groups, like there's Imam Mehdi's Little Helpers, for example, that run these children's activities all the time. And in the last year, I've reached out to them to say, this is great, but where does it say this is SEND inclusive? And what differentiation are you doing so parents can also bring along their children with disabilities or differences? And they're like, oh, no, like we wouldn't know where to start. And almost like they were scared. And actually, over the last sort of 6 months, I've seen such an increase in their confidence. Actually, we can do this. We definitely can. We just need to think a little creatively and outside of the box, and also adjust our expectations and know, for example, not all children learn or engage in activities in the same sort of pigeonholed way. And it's okay if they don't. It's fine if, rather than walking around the car, but they want to run up and down next to it, or stim while they're listening to a story about Prophet Adam, or whatever it might be. You know, it's just, I think, a matter of educating and building confidence within our community that there's nothing to be scared of, and you do have the skills to accommodate and include. You just need to give it a go. And when they do, they realise that really wasn't that hard, actually. So I'm working with existing small groups just to support their confidence building. And then there is an organisation who are starting to run summer camps, Camp Wonder, and they're starting to look at actually how they can also accommodate for children with disabilities in a drop-off way. So, I said that because I know that often organisations or clubs will say, yeah, that's fine, but you've got to stay.
And you
defeats the purpose.
And if there's a coffee shop nearby, happy to stay. But if there isn't, that that provides Wi-Fi, then yeah. But if there isn't, how it's
Exactly.
just ultimately we won't use that service because there's only so much
it's
annual
not
leave you get.
practical,
Yeah, it's just not
absolutely. It's
practical.
not the
Point. If other parents can, at the drop of a hat, sign their kids up and then go away for 4 hours, 3 hours, even 1 hour, how come you don't have the same sort of
That's really
opportunity? So it is in the pipeline. We will get there.
We'll get there. I think
Yeah.
just like any change,
Yeah.
it takes time to change mindsets, to change conversations, language, and introduce new things. So, I mean, we've got Azra with us, and I'm sure she will help through the journey. But also, since this is a KHOJA podcast, and there are other Jamaats within the UK that may want to establish similar systems, it would be good for them to maybe get in touch with you to see how you've done it and how they can do it. If that's okay,
We have a KONNECTION SEND network.
Oh, we do. Oh,
it was
my
set
God,
up only in the last couple of months, so
There
it's
you
very
go.
new. It's in its infancy. But I've recently been working with the Leeds Jamaat and then a contact in Manchester to share our planning and our resources that have supported us to execute some of our drop-off events. We've run around 3 or 4 of them in the last year, and we have one coming up on Saturday, inshallah, where parents can come, and for those 2 hours, they do not need to be with their children. So we have volunteers that will support children one-to-one, and parents and siblings will have activities or discussion circles to kind of engage with if they want to. And alhamdulillah, so far they've gone well. The feedback's been great. And so, as you've just said, other Jamaats want to replicate it. And so we're trying to make whatever we've done as accessible as possible, because there's no point reinventing the wheel.
No.
If you've done something and it works, but
You just
please,
have to replicate
yes,
that.
yes,
Yeah.
please do it. Yeah.
Yes.
One other thing that would be amazing once you make all these kind of links is if there is possibility of maybe having some sort of conference where
Yes.
parents and children across Jamaats that have, especially these children, could just get together, listen to maybe some specialists or whatever, and more so just get to know each other.
Yeah.
That
Because
would
I
be
think
so
that would
nice.
be massive.
I think
Yeah.
KONNECTION can, I'm sure, through KONNECTION SEND,
Inshallah.
accommodate that. Yeah.
There was an organisation called Amanati who ran a conference like that last year, and it was groundbreaking, fantastic, so really inspiring speakers, and we had lots of really positive feedback. So we know it can be done, and we know it's popular and needed. It's just a matter of mobilising and making sure it happens
Yeah,
now.
we're happy to help.
We're happy to.
That's so
we'll
brilliant.
definitely get involved
We
in
just
that.
did that for the RTS family network at
fantastic.
Creighton Manor, and we hired a creche there, and it
Fantastic.
took all the kids and the
Amazing.
parents called the network, and we did like speed dating and stuff. So yeah, we're more than happy to
Inshallah, let's make it happen.
Yeah, for sure.
There's so much untapped resource within our own community, actually, that this is what we need, is to bring ourselves together, figure out what our intentions and skill sets are, and then, realise
100%.
these aims.
Yes. That sounds fantastic. This is amazing. Azra, I wanted to hear from you the statistics. Have you got statistics for us in the KHOJA community? Maybe Hujat, or maybe just generally in the UK? Have you come across anything like that?
For the number of children with disabilities? Or?
Just to make people aware that it's not actually, one, it's actually, probably a lot of people are probably hiding it or maybe not quite come to terms with it, or, and actually it's more common than we think. And it's actually probably, in fact, is the normality is that everyone's different and there's many,
Well, look, from a speech and language perspective, there are 2 to 3 children in every classroom that have speech and language needs. So out of a class of 30, you'll have 2 to 3 children in there that have additional needs or differences from a speech and language perspective, which some parents listening to this might go, really? But you've got to remember, number one, that often disabilities are not visible.
Yeah.
But also, number 2, a lot of children and young people, even really young children, learn that actually the way to be fully accepted is to mask, which is quite sad. But they will learn ways to make sure that the people around them don't know that they're struggling, or that they need to learn in different ways, or that they need accommodations, which is a shame, actually. We should be enabling our children and young people to be their true, authentic selves. The problem there lies in the people around them not accepting the way they need to move or learn or use a space. So, yeah, it's really important for us to remember, actually, that there are perhaps more people out there with disabilities and differences than we realise. But we need to make it such that we create that psychological safety for those young people or their families to come forward and say, this is who we are. We exist.
We
We're
own
here.
it.
We want to be a part of the part of the community.
Yeah, and it's really about the authenticity that you mentioned, being authentic, and people mask it because I guess it's repeating the pattern of the past because it's been so badly seen and judged.
Yeah.
You want to mask it, so because you want to look like everyone else and be seen like everyone else, and again, like you said right at the beginning, we understand why it's been like that. The old generation, they have struggled with other challenges. They've had to build coping mechanisms to fit in, to wear masks of all sorts just to fit in, just to be that pleaser and that people pleaser, and it's human. But then with the additional needs as well, it becomes even more challenging. And it's about creating, like you said, that safe space, that psychological space where everybody can just be. And I think that's what the 12th Imam is coming for as well. When he comes, everybody's going to feel that safety, whether, they're saying that whether it's financial safety, whether it's psychological safety, in every way, people would just feel like they can just be who they are and improve and go through that journey of elevation, really. So that's really important, actually. Yeah, wow. It's about forgiveness, isn't it? It's a journey of acceptance, forgiveness, and
it's acceptance. It's for sure acceptance, and it's getting everyone to understand, just be inclusive and just accept people for who they are. Really, is the main thing, I think.
Yes, absolutely. Wow, that was really interesting. Is there anything else we haven't spoken about that you think we should be bringing to the table?
Oh, so much. I'm trying to think what would be the most useful for our audience. Well, maybe I'm just going to repeat the points that I made earlier, and the fact that we need to stop having these expectations that acknowledgement and reward lies only with those people that meet our preset, fixed in a box expectations of what achievement is. We really, when we talk about acceptance and inclusion and authenticity, I think it's almost become easy to say those words. We need to start breaking it down and thinking about, what does it mean to you to walk into a madrasa or to attend a mosque and to be accepting? What does it really mean? Check your facial expressions, check your mindset before you leave mosque, and rather than thinking, is that person in the wheelchair going to turn up again today? That's going to mean one less space for me to sit in. Actually,
wow.
Acceptance is not just, come to mosque and lip service. I think what I'm saying is we need to actualize all of this stuff that we've said start showing it through our behavior, through our attitudes, through our dinner table conversations with our children, so we break these generational misinformation that we're passing on and not really challenging. You know, in Madrasa, we run this yearly Celebrating Abilities Day, and that in itself we've changed from Disability Awareness Day to Celebrating Abilities Day to try and make it strength-based. And that's where we need to start, is educating the younger generation so that they're well informed and they know, as well as saying, don't do this, they know what to do, how to be a good friend, how to support and include and create authenticity and all of that. How? Give ourselves and the people around us the actual skills, tangible things that they can do differently in their daily lives.
Walk the talk, basically.
Absolutely, yeah.
And to further that point, I would just like to say, actually, now that you said that, is like, I think since I was like 2 or 3, we haven't been to an Ashura Day Majlis.
No.
Because it would just be sensory overload for her. It's rather let's let her play at home and listen to on the TV, because she would not be able to handle. Now that might be because of building works or whatever, and when there's bigger space, it may be a bit easier. But it's how do we accommodate people with those sensory needs?
Yeah. What do you mean by sensory overload?
So like the amount of people, the noise, just the lack of space for her.
She's going to experience it in a different way.
She's just not. She'll just have a meltdown in that environment. So we've made the conscious effort to do Ashura or any big, like where we know the mosque has got to be full nights at home, as opposed to going, as opposed for one of us going.
Yep.
That's really sad that it's but
just
now,
a
alhamdulillah, we have in HOJA have a sensory room, which
exactly.
alhamdulillah now is really encouraging. And I think for our viewers, it's important to understand that the sensory room is not, oh God, that's now all that space wasted, and we're not gonna, because that's probably the very first reaction as a community that we don't that isn't aware that, oh, we could have fit 50 people in that room, and now we have to. But actually the importance of what it means for parents to have that space, what it means for the child to be able to experience Muharram and Ashura, like you said, in the mosque, in where they should be, in an environment that is conducive for them, where they can actually, be included and be seen, Do
you know, just 2 weeks ago, I accompanied a parent who wanted to come to HOJA to see the sanctuary. And she said, look, I'm only going to stay for 10 minutes because I know my son will experience that sensory overload and it's a new place. But 10 minutes is great. Because thus far, I've been sending my daughter to the classes, and then I sit in the car with my other child who's autistic for 3 hours. They sit in the car to any Islamic center, not just HOJA. So actually, I will come in. They stayed for 1.5 hours. And she said, this is the first time I've been to an Islamic center with my son, and he's so happy and he's so comfortable. And maybe it won't be like this every time because it might be unpredictable, but at least I now know that the space is there.
Yes. And both parents can come and take turns.
Absolutely.
And one can actually enjoy the lecture while the other one's in the sensory room, and then the next night then change. And, at least you're not at home in front of a TV, and you can see people socialize, have that, And
actually really the lecture's broadcast in the room, so you don't even need to leave necessarily.
Oh, there you go.
You can if you want to, or you can stay in there. Yes. You can come and go. You can spend the whole hour in there. You can go be in the main congregation, and then when the overwhelm kicks in, you can go and take that break. I guess this is a call out actually because it is a KHOJA podcast.
Of course, yes.
That, to other centres, if you are a decision maker or a planner, you sit on a committee or you have a position of influence, use it. Use it, right? Use it to not have disability or inclusion as just like an agenda item, but something that's borne in mind from the beginning of ideas being thought about and discussed around a round table. It has to be there from the start. Otherwise, you're not going to have a centre where you have a dedicated room like the one in HOJA, which is a really good size and not just a pokey little leftover room. There's a leftover room. Okay, that can be the sensory room because there's no other use for it. That's not good enough. It needs to be that decision makers make this a priority.
Yeah.
When Allah says that, I can't remember the full ayah, but it talks about either our deen or our centres or whatever being for people who submit. People who submit are not those that come to mosque and sit quietly. People who submit are anyone who loves the world and people and their faith and that's children with disabilities or without. So then our centres need to accommodate accordingly, right? For absolutely anyone who wants to come in, to come and sit and be a part, so that families are not having to, on the day of Ashura or whatever, stay at home. But if they want to and they can, then they do come to the mosque.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because the
And credit
facility's
to...
there.
Just at least that the opportunity's there. You might not always be able to use it, but at least to know
Yeah,
that
exactly.
the option is
Yeah,
there
100%.
if you can and want to, right?
Yeah.
No, credit to the leaders who have allowed this, to
Absolutely,
happen.
yeah.
So many, so many leaders can, like you said, use your influence in the right way to make a difference. And on that note, I just wanted to give a special thanks to actually Salim Bayremtullah, who's the head of KHOJA, who's given me the opportunity to do this podcast so that we can call people, talk about difficult conversations, and actually open up to subjects like this one, which is such an important subject, and to all of the many leaders who have allowed that. So just special credit to Salim right there. But alhamdulillah, I mean, we're coming to the end of the podcast. We've spoken about so many things, and there's so many more things we can talk about.
Sure.
And maybe we can do a part 2, who knows? But at this point, I just want to ask you one last question, which is, our podcast is called KHOJA Connection. The word connection is there on purpose. It's there because I do believe strongly that connection is what brings people together. I would just want to ask each one of you, what does connection mean to you?
What does connection mean to me? I think you're right. I think it's about just connect our community. Growing up in STEM or playing football with STEM or just having that bond, I'd say it's a bond between the people, because all my good friends are all grown up with from Madrasa, from football, all through the community. So it's just having that bond with people and being able to share lives and experiences with.
Excellent. How about you, Zora?
Connection to me means safety. So a safe place for where, like Abbas said, that you grow your bonds and you grow your friendships, and they're your friends for life, right? You have that at school. You have your school friends at madrasa and mosque. You have your mosque friends, which I'm still in touch with. You meet new friends when you get married, etc. But connection to me is having that safety net, that safe space that you can join and attend to and connect with and keep in touch with for the rest of your life.
Excellent. How about you, Ezra?
I think connection also to me means commonalities, thinking about the things that we have in common, things that make us similar, the things that make us journey this path together. We've talked a lot about disabilities and differences, and they're undeniable, but there's so much that brings us together that we have in common. And it's those commonalities that support us to connect. We were created as social beings. We're supposed to actually support each other to go on this journey towards Allah and achieve our best selves with each other. It's not always easy to get on with everyone, let's be real. Everyone has their differences, different approaches, perspectives, way of talking, all that kind of stuff. There will always be something that you have in common with the person to your left and the person to your right. But sometimes we lose sight of that. We need to get ourselves back on the track of remembering we're all in this together.
We're all in the Ark of Noah together.
Beautiful. Yeah.
And absolutely. And I think one of the things that I'm taking away from today is something you said, which is, something I never would have put it that way, but it's just that the child has additional needs.
Yeah.
It's for me that's what's resonated. It's more than anything. It's just additional needs, and when you normalize it that way, it is exactly what it is, and that there's nothing awkward, there's nothing taboo. I have additional needs in some aspect of my life as well. So actually, it's just looking at things differently. So thank you so much to all three of you for coming, for taking time to give so much value and so much awareness. I really hope that it opens a lot of minds and a lot of eyes and insights as well. I know it has for me. So thank you so much to all of you.
Thanks for having us. Thank you.
Thanks.
Assalamu alaikum, dear viewers. This is the KHOJA Connection podcast, growing through conversations. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel This is run by KHOJA, and press the notification button so that you can get all of our podcasts, and they are one after another amazing, exciting conversations.